Good morning and welcome to this time-honored tradition. 49 Santa Barbara mayors have come before me, dating back to our city's founding in 1850. How about that? To discuss with their constituencies the health and vitality of our esteemed city. As I delve into my second year as mayor, I'm glad to say that our collective footing is strong, and it's an honor to connect with you this morning as we continue our shared work on behalf of the residents and businesses of Santa Barbara. To the employers, financial institutions, small businesses, and all the chamber members gathered here this morning, you have my utmost respect and commitment to help our business community thrive. Your success is the city of Santa Barbara's success, and I welcome your participation in fostering policies that promote continued economic prosperity. To all of our residents gathered here today, I welcome your interest and support and even constructive criticism as we all work toward a truly open government. I'm also honored to introduce my colleagues, some of them here today. Their job is daunting, but their pencils are sharp, and each brings a strength that I admire. First, our longest-serving colleague, not the oldest, since 2010, District 2 Councilmember Randy Rouse. I saw him. District 5 Councilmember Eric Friedman, who's our Mayor Pro Tem. District 1 Councilmember Jason Dominguez. District 4 Councilmember Kristen Sneddon. District 3 Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez, my neighbor. And our newest councilmember, appointed and sworn in last month, District 6 Councilmember Megan Harmon. As a reminder, the council seats for District 1, 2, 3, and 6 will be up for election in November. The individuals elected will serve a 5-year term to accommodate the city's upcoming even-year election cycles. I also want to introduce another group of hardworking individuals, the city's department heads. They promote integrity and efficiency to our 1,000 city personnel, our workers, who keep the city running day and night. These leaders are seated throughout the audience. Please help me welcome City Administrator Paul Casey, City Attorney Ariel Kalan, Assistant City Administrator Pam Antle, Finance Director Robert Samario, Waterfront Director Scott Reedman, Public Works Director Rebecca Bjork, Community Development Director George Buell, Administrative Services Director Christy Schmidt, Parks and Recreation Director Jill Zachary, Library Director Jessica Cadiente, Police Chief Lori Luno, and newly appointed directors Fire Chief Eric Nickel and Airport Director Henry Thompson. Oh, thanks. Santa Barbara is a preeminent travel destination. Forbes rates Santa Barbara a top 14 international destination in 2019, coming in just under the entire country of Singapore. These are among some of the travel commendations and top honors we received as of late for our American Riviera. We are grateful for the tireless efforts of Visit Santa Barbara. Their staff are among the best and brightest in the hospitality industry. Thank you, Kathy Janega-Dykes. We are so proud of our beautiful beaches, majestic mountains, and colorful culture that make Santa Barbara a premier resort destination. World-class accommodations and dining await our many visitors. More than 7 million visit the South Coast, spending approximately $1.9 billion each year. Our home is a place that creates lasting memories. Last year, we saw more than a 10% increase in passenger air travel at Santa Barbara Airport. As the Tri-County region's airport of choice, travelers continue to choose our hub over the more stressful LAX or Burbank's Bob Hope to meet their air travel needs. Airline providers include Alaska, American, Delta, Frontier, United, Sun Country, and Contour. We've increased air service to Dallas, Denver, Oakland, Sacramento, and Las Vegas. The municipal airport contributes in excess of $205 million each year in economic impact to the region. Turning to the natural environment, on January 28, 1969, an oil platform ruptured 6 miles off of Santa Barbara's coast, sending 100,000 barrels of crude oil into the Santa Barbara Channel over the next 10 days. That day and the environmental activism that followed thrust Santa Barbara onto the world stage as a leader in the environmental movement. Since then, we have rocketed beyond the shores of Santa Barbara to do everything we can to lower greenhouse emissions and prepare for an uncertain future. Changes in our climate are complex, not completely understood, and are not easily forecasted into the next generation. The city has taken bold steps to quell our impact on our ever-changing environment. Ratified in 2012, the city's Climate Change Action Plan is twofold. On one hand, we must take bold steps to reduce greenhouse gases, and that means doing our part locally. On the other hand, we must also continually adapt and focus on our own strategy to meet the needs of tomorrow. Cities account for more than 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. As part of the Global Covenant of Mayors, I want to ensure our city is a climate leader. We are seeing the local manifestation of climate change, namely fire and drought, threats to a reliable water supply, and anticipated sea level rise. We must invest in clean, renewable energy. A complementary effort is the city's application for state and federal funding for a robust community wildfire protection plan. While climate conditions improve this year with much needed rainfall, we must be ever vigilant about conservation. 2019 has brought with it 17 storms and a regional annual rainfall above 135% of an average year. While Gibraltar Reservoir, which is a city asset, has crested and the Cachuma Reservoir is filled to 75%, dry conditions can return, and continued conservation respects our natural resources. The cumulative effect of the 7-year drought has been extreme and will take several rainy years to fully recover. Thanks to extraordinary conservation by residents, the city currently consumes the same amount of water as it did in 1950, despite a population that has doubled in size. Our financial investment in the city's Charles E. Meyer desalinization plant produces 3 million gallons of drinking water per day, or about 30% of the city's demand. The desal plant is an important part of the city's water supply portfolio. Consequently, the council and I supported the terms of a 50-year water deal with the Montecito Water District, selling desalinated water to our neighbors, which will limit the need for future rate increases to the city's water customers. That's good news. The city has begun the process of developing a sea level rise adaptation plan that will evaluate the city's vulnerabilities and analyze the feasibility, economic impacts, and environmental consequences of adaptation strategies to address impacts in low-lying and coastal bluff areas. Findings will be incorporated into the policies and development standards in the city's local coastal plan. According to a report by the State of California Ocean Protection Council, the sea level in Santa Barbara may rise more than half a foot by 2030, 2.5 feet by 2060, and 6.6 feet by 2100. Our City Council has taken the bold action to transition to a 100% renewable energy portfolio by 2030. The city is developing an energy strategic plan, a roadmap to guide the city to this ambitious goal. It identified gaps in policy as well as a playbook to execute the projects, policies, programs, and funding opportunities to eventually achieve 100% renewable energy. Currently, the city uses 44% renewable electricity, whereas the community at large consumes 35% renewable energy. Along that vein, the city will continue to explore the concept of community choice energy. In that model, Southern California Edison would continue to be responsible for the electrical transmission and infrastructure, and government agencies like ours would take on the responsibility of purchasing the electricity with the goal of increasing our use of renewables. In other efforts, our region launched the long-awaited commuter train last year. In our first video, you'll see how people are choosing the comfort and convenience of the train over their cars.
It may seem like a commonplace sound, but it's music to the ears of commuters. That's because after years of asking for it, morning train service during commute hours has finally arrived. The service isn't new. It's actually a shift in Amtrak's Pacific Surfliner schedule. Instead of late morning, the train now picks up commuters in Ventura just after 6 a.m., in Carpinteria around 6:30. Then it stops in Santa Barbara at 6:47, with the last stop in Goleta at 7:16. Up till now, the 15,000 commuters who come from the south every weekday have had two options: brave clockwork-like snail-paced traffic or shift their schedule.
I was leaving Ventura at 5 a.m. to try to get up to Goleta by 6 ahead of the traffic. It was a very early schedule at my work. I was leaving work around 2:30, same thing, trying to get home before the traffic.
The early morning train service is a reality because of the tenacious advocacy of local elected officials and the passage of tax measures, Measure A in 2008 and SB 1 in 2017.
Back in 2008, congestion along 101 was a major issue, and it still is. We are working on a HOV project from Ventura County all the way up to Santa Barbara. We want to promote people getting out of their cars, and so that was part of the Measure A program. And I got to give a plug to SB 1. SB 1 provided the funding to the state to provide half of the cost of operating this new train service. So without that, we wouldn't be here today.
The trains offer wide seats, free Wi-Fi, and plugs to power your devices, as well as a cafe car offering coffee, snacks, and even craft beer. And special fares make taking the train hard to beat. Commuters coming from Ventura County can get a 10-ride pass for $50 or an unlimited monthly pass for $150. That means if you commute by train 5 days a week, you'll be paying $3.75 a trip.
We have many employees that live in Ventura County and also Carpinteria, and this service will get them to work rested, right? They're not fighting the traffic on 101, and the city is paying for 75% of their train fare.
That's a huge savings. For me alone, I was spending over $250 a month in gas.
This community, I think, we're very alternative move friendly. The employers have stepped up, and I know some employers are actually picking up their employees from the train station and providing them a direct connection to their employer site.
If your employer doesn't offer shuttle service, you still have a number of options to get from the train to work and back. For starters, you can get some exercise and walk.
I was commuting for 5 years, which I was sitting in a car, for my commute for almost an hour and a half each way. So walking up and down State Street and having that option has improved my health overall. When I get to work, I feel revitalized.
For cyclists, you can take your bike on the train, or you can reserve a locker at the station. MTD is also supporting rail commuters with free last mile service.
So last mile service is connecting bus service from the train station to where people work. MTD is contracted with Santa Barbara County Association of Governments to provide that service in the morning and the afternoon. And we have 3 different routes, one in downtown Santa Barbara from the Santa Barbara station and 2 from the Goleta station.
However you make your connections, taking the train for your commute instead of the freeway has tremendous environmental, economic, and quality of life benefits.
One nice thing about the commuting time is I have some downtime to kind of sit there and snooze or do other things. It's not only, if I'm working a long day, coming home at night, there are times when I have to slap myself to stay awake, so it's safer.
We've just been relaxing, enjoying the ride. Yeah. I mean, when we have been leaving, we haven't seen the traffic backed up. We're like, haha, we're not there.
We encourage people to drink that craft beer on the way home and not on the way into work, right? Nicole, have you tried the beer? Okay. The City Council has actively engaged on downtown issues, and we've heard a lot of ideas to bring more people downtown. We've initiated a downtown strategic planning effort to help us prioritize various projects to achieve a more dynamic combination of retail, office, and we hope residential uses. The downtown strategic plan will look at resident spending patterns to see how much we're spending online and in other commercial areas. The study will answer one of the biggest questions: how much retail space can our community support? We have a lot of large buildings that may not be sustainable as retail uses in the future. If you have suggestions for downtown, we encourage you to email the team or attend the community meeting that we're hosting in May. We expect the report to wrap up by June. In the meantime, there are many wonderful projects underway. Paseo Nuevo will be renovating this year with Pacific Retail Partners investing $20 million to make the public areas more inviting. Decorative pavers, yes. Decorative pavers, landscaping, water elements, and a fire pit will encourage gathering and more family-friendly spaces. Construction starts next month. Pacific Retail Partners acquired the remaining lease years of the Macy's building, and they will be discussing different options for the vacant building this spring. All of our vacancies are opportunities for new businesses to get started. Acknowledging that many entrepreneurs don't want to sign long leases, last year the city co-hosted a workshop with Women's Economic Ventures and Impact Hub. The goal was to figure out how to be more creative with those empty spaces. We then convened workshops to help connect entrepreneurs, brokers, and property owners to encourage pop-ups or short-term leases in the vacant spaces. The city also created a sign template for startups so they can work with a local printer without having to obtain a sign permit, speeding up the process for opening a business. Thanks to the innovative mindset of property owners and commercial brokers, we now have 7 pop-ups on State Street. New business owners are able to test the market without a significant investment, and property owners can stage their property, earn revenue, and not let their building sit vacant. At Mosaic Locale, 3 entrepreneurs sell donuts, empanadas, and beer, and bring in customers at all hours of the day. Together, they share the cost of the larger space. Other vacant spaces have turned into art galleries and clothing boutiques. We also have art installations like this one from the Museum of Contemporary Art that offers passersby an art experience on State Street. I'd like to congratulate our community partners for taking a fresh look at many of the vacant spaces. To speed up tenant improvements, a task group was formed last fall to make recommendations to council, and that'll be coming in a few months. Recommendations will address the predictability of the permitting process and improved customer service and communication. Filling the vacancies helps us achieve another goal, to create safe, inviting spaces for people to shop and dine. We started a program where uniformed ambassadors patrol the street to be the eyes and ears of the police department. We recently received a state grant of more than $1 million for police officer staffing to enforce our smoking laws and other priorities like public alcohol consumption and loitering. The grant also funds new no smoking signs that will be installed next month. I'm going to go off script a little bit to thank Assistant City Administrator Nina Johnson. As an elected official, I take credit when staff does good stuff. That's kind of how it is. But I have to be honest, Nina did all the hard work on those empty spaces. We're still working on it. And I was just talking to Bob Tuller today. We still have work to do. Hang with us, folks. From downtown to the rest of the community, homelessness is a complex issue that the city and numerous service providers work to address. In this video, you'll learn more about our upcoming efforts.
The City of Santa Barbara and its partners assisting our homeless population are ramping up a well-coordinated effort to help those most in need of housing and services. The first ever $2 million State of California HEAP grant, or Homeless Emergency Aid Program, brings together a wide range of agencies to help the most vulnerable homeless and also the merchants who are trying to do business in the downtown.
The focus is going to be more street outreach with medical practitioner that will go out so that there's somebody there that can address any kind of issues that are critical for a homeless individual, as well as placement into either emergency shelter beds or hopefully in the long term maybe a permanent housing situation.
Much of the street-level outreach with the homeless will be made by workers from a Southern California organization known as CityNet.
To sort of focus on the top 50 most vulnerable from State Street and actually throughout the city to sort of bring to bear the resources of all these collective organizations to help those and assist those homeless neighbors.
The focus will be on the chronically homeless, veterans, seniors, people with health issues, including mental disabilities.
A lot of people, they have multiple disabilities. They have a mental illness, they have a physical disability, they've been evicted for some reason, and once they lost their housing, it was impossible for them to crawl out of that hole to get back into housing. And so people who have lived in Santa Barbara their whole lives, who have no desire to leave, can't find housing because it's not affordable for them at all. And so people who were homeless for what they thought was going to be a really brief stint turned into 20 years.
United Way's Home for Good, which focuses its efforts on the State Street corridor, recently helped more than a dozen homeless find housing and 13 others reunified with family in the last 6 months. Jeff Schaefer says it comes down to building trust.
But for me, it's all about relationships, whether you talk about relationships with people on the streets or relationships amongst all the providers. If there's trust in all those areas, your possibilities at success are much, much higher.
The $2 million grant is designed to take that trust and relationship building with the homeless to another level by putting an extra 4 city networkers on the street.
When you really do sort of kind of take a large, challenging societal challenge and sort of focus it down on a couple key individuals and sort of bring to bear all the resources on a relatively small population, we have seen the significant results. We've seen people who have been homeless for decades, literally, sort of finally get to that place where, because of this collaboration, they were able to get housed and actually stay housed.
Cottage Health Systems is part of the collaboration, providing funding for 5 beds at the Path Shelter on Cacique Street, and a nurse practitioner working in the trenches to help the homeless that have physical and mental disabilities. And the city received a tobacco enforcement grant to put more police officers on the street for smoking enforcement and other nuisance violations.
Part of our job as police department is to provide a presence in the downtown area where people feel safe to go shop, to hang out downtown, and business owners have the opportunity to succeed as a business. So we're involved in helping people who aren't committing criminal violations but just need an opportunity to get off the street.
Police officers will collaborate with CityNet and other outreach workers to find permanent placement for the most chronic homeless, many of whom you may find in a storefront doorway or wandering State Street. This upgraded effort is welcome news for a business community trying hard to attract and retain customers.
Having that presence continually keeps down the problems. It also helps those officers address if there's any mental health issues or safety issues in the moment. So knowing that they're there all the time is really key toward these businesses.
Local business Logic Monitor has established a fund of $5,000 for reunification.
And the downtown organization hosts that fund. So anytime that we find somebody on state who has a better, healthy place to go, like a family member that would take them back, we have instant funds.
It's estimated there are over 800 homeless in Santa Barbara, and well over 100 of those are in the downtown corridor. Many shy away from services and reunification or help of any kind. But those who work closely with this segment of the population believe this new, more collaborative approach will pay off.
And so a lot of the people that we work with will not listen to the fact that we're going to offer them services for the first 20 times that we offer it. And then once I've kind of built a relationship with them, once I've talked to them every day for 2 months, then finally they'll say, you know what, actually I do really want to apply for housing. I just didn't think it was a possibility at this point.
The reality is it's going to take truly a collaborative posture and a collaborative effort to really get all the right resources focused. We're better together, that's just the reality.
The City Attorney's Office has also initiated a new solutions court to address how nuisance crimes like drinking in public are prosecuted. The goal is helping people get services instead of going to jail. This is a partnership with the District Attorney, the Public Defender's Office, and other service providers. With more activity on the street, we discourage loitering and nuisance issues. Along with downtown Santa Barbara, we are exploring many ideas to bring people downtown for events like block parties and family-friendly activities. The city provides more than $700,000 each year for events, festivals, and the arts, leveraging additional private dollars to make projects happen. The impact is tremendous, as arts and cultural activities bring almost $200 million to our local economy. And making it easier for groups to plan events is one of the best ways to encourage what we want to see. We're looking at how to streamline our events procedures and encourage more people to come forward with creative proposals. And we're already benefiting from taking some risks. We recently approved closing part of Cabrillo Boulevard to host the Race of Gentlemen, bringing vintage car enthusiasts and hobbyists to Santa Barbara to watch drag racing against a sunny ocean backdrop. Yay, we had some people go. Great. Let's see if we can bring it back. We also approved the Holiday Night Market, a large pop-up of artisans selling their wares with festive music and other seasonal treats, helping more than 100 independent vendors, food and alcoholic beverage purveyors, and thousands of holiday customers come together safely under one roof was no small feat in an old department store building. I'd like to thank the organizers and various health and safety authorities for getting creative to make it happen. Throughout downtown, we need to pay more attention to activating open spaces. I'm happy to report that there is so much happening behind the scenes on a number of sites. Council approved funding to redesign the library plaza to make it more open and inviting. We've created a campaign committee with the Library Foundation and hired architects to finalize the design of the new space. And we're really excited about the possibility of a new home for the Saturday morning farmers market, possibly at De La Guerra Plaza. For decades, our community, local architects, and the Trust for Historic Preservation have urged improvements to the plaza to make it a central gathering space for downtown. We held a successful workshop recently to get the community suggestions to design a new gathering space for events and to accommodate the farmers. We've also been looking very closely at the State Street underpass and how to improve this connection between the waterfront and the Funk Zone and the rest of downtown. Based on a recent workshop, we heard a few priorities from residents, such as reducing the number of vehicle lanes and allowing more space for pedestrians and bikes. With this input, we applied and recently received a $5 million state grant to fund traffic improvements in 2022. Many ideas related to creative lighting options and the use of sound and music. I talked earlier about not being afraid to try new things, and along these lines, we're planning an experiment weekend in April to test out new concepts with lighting installations at the underpass and moving up State Street. We'll also close a couple of blocks for a pedestrian promenade at the 400, 500 blocks of State Street with expanded outdoor dining and music. You're invited to attend and find out what we learn. Providing workforce housing has long been one of my top priorities. There is much to balance: the need for projects to pencil, support for the first-time home buyer, a healthy spectrum of rental units, inclusionary measures to ensure local employees have an opportunity to live here, and also not overdeveloping and protecting our small town character. Several projects are about to add to the downtown mix of housing options. Located in the 600 block of Anacapa Street, the former Cravioto building is under construction and will result in a ground floor of retail and a total of 30 rental units. And you can see it going over to Randy's restaurant, the Paradise Cafe. Recently completed Arlington Village, located at 1330 Chapala Street, adds another 33 residential units in the heart of the downtown corridor. 2018 marked the opening of Jardín de las Rosas, a 100% affordable housing project in downtown Santa Barbara. The 40-unit, 3-story Spanish-style complex dedicated to Santa Barbara's lower-income earners was 8 years in the making and sits at the corner of Salsa Puedes and Haley Streets. Addressing senior housing needs, the Grace Village project was completed last year, and Gardens on Hope will finish construction at year's end. Johnson Court is expected to be complete by early 2020, providing housing to veterans. Altogether, approximately 14% of the city's housing stock is considered affordable. I'd like to congratulate our housing authority. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. And Rob Fredericks told me they've built more than 1,300 Capital A affordable projects. Congratulations to the Housing Authority. Throughout this next year, the City Council will tackle a citywide tenants' rights ordinance. The sweeping package may include mandatory year-long leases for renters, a just cause eviction provision, and relocation assistance for tenured renters. We're also exploring displacement assistance during transitions of building evictions. At the state level, recent legislation is paving the way to meet housing needs. Both opportunities and challenges await the city's interpretation of these housing laws. One recent law would streamline and provide an over-the-counter approval process for eligible housing projects. We've created a working group of the Planning Commission and Design Review Boards to develop review standards and will continue to monitor its rollout. At this point in the State of the City presentation, I welcome to the podium our City Administrator, Paul Casey, and he'll tell us more about the city's financial condition. Paul?
Thank you, staff. Right. They know who signed their checks. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for attending. Today I am going to focus on the state of the city's financial condition, which is good, but with some headwinds. Our enterprise funds are doing well, and we're excited about delivering on Measure C infrastructure projects, as the mayor will talk about shortly. But the general fund is facing pressures this the coming year, as I'll discuss in more detail. First, some context. The city of Santa Barbara is essentially a large corporation providing a wide variety of municipal services. My role is equivalent in many ways to a corporate CEO, with the board of directors being the city council elected by the public, and with the added bonus that we have our weekly board meetings televised and open to the public. You all should try that sometime. But in municipal government talk, we are also considered a full-service city, which means that we provide the widest variety of services all under the city umbrella. Police and fire, parks and recreation, water and wastewater, streets, signals and sidewalks, planning and housing policies, libraries, a commercial airport, a working harbor, and all the administrative and back-of-house operations it takes to support those services. It's a large, complex organization with a total staff of approximately 1,500 employees when you include full-time and part-time employees, and a total budget of $351 million. It's a privilege to work for the organization in a community that cares deeply about how and what we do, and I greatly appreciate the hard work and dedication of all the employees in the city. The City of Santa Barbara operates through two key budget approaches. We have a general fund that covers basic governmental operations like police, fire, libraries, parks and recreation, community development, and those are supported largely by general tax revenues. And we have enterprise funds. These are special funds that are self-supporting and operate as their own financial entities. They receive no taxes or support from the general fund and instead rely solely on their own fees and charges to support their activities. Most of our enterprise funds are in sound financial shape, including the water and wastewater funds, airport, and the waterfront as key examples. They provide a day-to-day services and operations that we often don't think about. For instance, quality water comes out of the tap every morning when you wake up and turn it on. But we also manage these funds to be strategically, yet consistently reinvesting in the capital investments it takes to keep these plants and operations running. Today, though, I'll focus on the general fund and some of the challenges and opportunities that exist there. First, some highlights of the general fund. The general fund is in good financial shape, but facing some challenges looking forward. The general fund has a total budget of just shy of $180 million. Revenues have been mixed, with property taxes strong, bed tax stable, and sales tax soft. Our reserves are in good shape as they continue to be at full policy levels as they have been for the past 3 years. The Council's reserve policy is to have 25% of our general fund operating budget in reserves for disasters and economic uncertainties. But as with most of you, we are preparing for and expecting an eventual economic slowdown that's bound to happen in the relatively near future. And such a slowdown will most likely impact our revenues. So we're being prudent in our economic and revenue forecast, and that is also why having our reserves fully funded is important. In addition, the city, as well as most municipalities across the state, are faced with rising pension costs over the next 5 years. On the capital and infrastructure side, we are fortunate to have had the community support a substantial investment by passing Measure C. We continue to ramp up the investment of those funds back into the community. So let's talk a little more detail on each of those issues. From a revenue standpoint, the general fund is supported by three main revenue sources: property tax, sales tax, and transient occupancy tax, or the bed tax. Property taxes have been a steady revenue source for the city over the past few years. With the real estate market pretty stable right now, we expect property tax revenue to continue to grow in the 5 to 6% range going forward. There was a one-time payment in 2018 that skews the numbers you're looking at. It skews them in both 2018 and 2019. But if you look at the multi-year trend, property tax continues to grow on average in that 5 to 6% range. One of local government's traditional revenue sources is the sales tax. Sales tax growth has not kept up overall with economic activity. As you can see in the chart, from 2011 to 2015, coming out of the recession, sales tax was growing at about 5% per year on average, which was quite strong. However, starting in 2016, the growth rate slowed considerably and has been relatively flat for a number of years, even though the economy overall has continued to do well. This is a new disconnect we have to contend with in local government finance, and we're now looking at a slower growth in sales tax at about 1% to 2% per year. There are a number of key moving parts that you can see reflected in the chart. Some are technical in nature. For instance, the state underpaid the city by $1.2 million in 2018 due to some system problems as they went through transitioning to a new system, which makes that year look worse than it really was. But then they send us a reconciliation payment the next year in 2019, which makes that look artificially high. But again, once you smooth those issues out, we continue to be in a 1 to 2% growth mode for sales tax. And even though it's not sales tax, I should note we are expecting some cannabis tax revenue once the adult use storefronts open up. Although we're being cautious as to how much that will generate in tax receipts, we'll budget more precisely once we see what revenue actually comes in from the storefronts. The overall trend in sales tax is a state and nationwide issue, with a variety of factors contributing to the situation. There's more online shopping, there's the decline of national department stores, a low inflationary environment until recently, and a trend towards experience over retail, which we see locally with the success of the Funk Zone. This fundamental change in retail is difficult, not just for Santa Barbara, but for most cities across the country. We continue to see large chains leaving as they retrench nationwide. This is unsettling and difficult for property owners, for neighboring businesses, for employees, for residents, and for the city. But we also see new entities open up. A number of small eateries, breweries, and retail spaces are coming back. We see Amazon, of all people, investing in significant employee space in the heart of downtown. We see a Bristol Farms and a Target opening up on Outer State Street. And yes, Target's going to be extremely popular. Parking is going to be very tight for the first 6 months. Shop early. That's my message. I always joke, in Santa Barbara, we hate nothing more than a successful business and all the traffic and parking problems that come from that. The takeaway from this discussion in my mind is that we all will have to keep adjusting and dealing with this changing retail climate. The mayor highlighted earlier the wide variety of efforts the city is taking to do our part in shaping the next iteration of downtown Santa Barbara, and I want to emphasize my personal commitment to that effort, as well as the city staff's. We're all in this together as we go through this generational transition of retail and its impact on downtown. We all want to see downtown and every commercial area in the city thrive, because we all benefit when that happens. For the city, it helps fund important services like public safety, libraries, and parks. A quick note on Measure C, the 1-cent voter-approved sales tax for infrastructure. It is a great lift for our ability to reinvest into the community. And the mayor will cover some of those highlights shortly. But I just want to say having the financial ability to build a new police station, invest substantially in our streets and roads, and maintain our aging facilities is a great gain. Moving on to transient occupancy tax, or the bed tax. Revenues from the bed tax have been strong since 2011. Although the last few years we have seen a plateau for a number of reasons. Hotels are operating at a fairly high occupancy level, which is great, but doesn't provide a lot of room for growth. And the city of Goleta and the county have also built or reopened more hotels, which eats into our tax base being the traditional hotel destination in the greater Santa Barbara area. I now want to talk just briefly about pensions. This has been a continuing theme for a number of years now and continues to get quite a bit of coverage over legal issues that you read about frequently in the news. The California Supreme Court recently made a partial ruling with regards to employee pensions, but it has a minimal impact on our pension obligations to current and retired employees. For the City of Santa Barbara, we are a member of the statewide CalPERS systems, who administers retirement plans for most cities and counties in the state. And CalPERS has made a number of fiduciary changes to the way they run their retirement program to shore up its fiscal status. They're prudent, appropriate moves, in my opinion. The biggest change they made is lowering the discount rate, or the assumed investment return that they expect to make going forward, from 7.5% to 7% over the coming years. They also adjusted for the fact that we're living longer, and they still haven't recovered from the significant investment losses that they sustained during the Great Recession of 10 years ago. What that means, though, is they are requiring increased payments into the system from employers like the City of Santa Barbara. We calculate that the city's pension cost will increase $2 to $2.5 million per year by fiscal year 2025. We have a plan to address this, including limiting overall wage increase to modest levels, talking with employee bargaining units about increased cost sharing, and managing our budget prudently. Fortunately, the city is going into this financially strong, so it can be managed. The City of Santa Barbara will be fine, but it's another headwind from a budget perspective. Regardless of what our revenue growth does in the coming years, our pension costs will definitely be going up. Before I wrap up, I would like to mention that the city is committed to openness and transparency in our budgeting process, and we have a tool on our website called OpenGov. It allows for online access to 4 years of prior revenues and expenditures, and the ability to analyze the city's financial data through a number of filters. Please check it out if you're interested. Thank you again for attending today. If any of you know me, go Anteaters. And with that, I will turn it back to the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Every presentation needs a pie chart, just what we needed. Adequately addressing neighborhood quality of life issues remains at the forefront of any city strategic plan. In 2017, Santa Barbara residents passed Measure C, as you heard, a 1-cent general purpose sales tax to increase the funding for roads and vital infrastructure and programs. Our local tax dollars continue to work for us. Measure C is currently funding pavement maintenance work, stormwater facilities upgrades, street lighting and traffic signal improvements, preliminary design work to rebuild Fire Station 7, renovations for Fire Stations 3, 4, and 5, security cameras at the Central Library, and business corridor improvements. 2 projects include the ongoing endeavor to revitalize De La Guerra Plaza and replace the 60-year-old seismically unfit police facility. Here's a video to learn more about that project.
Built in 1959 to house a staff and sworn personnel at the time of 85, the Santa Barbara Police Station today is home to more than double that number at 211.
It's not efficient. We have a lot of people crammed into small spaces, so it definitely isn't ideal by any means.
The building's deficiencies run on and on and on, from outdated electrical infrastructure and limited storage area to crawl spaces filled with asbestos and lead paint.
It's nostalgic, it's historical, absolutely, but it doesn't function for the current public safety needs of the city of Santa Barbara.
This cement structure is unreinforced and too expensive to bring up to today's earthquake codes. Plus, the building is too small and makes no economic sense to retrofit.
Seismically, it is not up to today's code. It was built in 1959. My job is to get them out of that building as soon as possible.
Brad Hess is the City of Santa Barbara's project manager in its effort to move out of the old station and into something larger, more efficient, and built for policing in the year 2020.
The operations and the efficiencies that go on between the parking structure and the building actually facilitate what they do every day.
Hess says officers still do a remarkable job despite the deficiencies.
And as you can see, everything's a maze around here.
Before we show you the future, here's the present.
And then that's our holding cell area, our interview rooms, and then a witness interview room. Again, everything very compact.
Captain Arroyo led us through every nook and cranny, including this room where the officers keep their gear. every retrofitted closet like the one that's used as the female officer's locker room, and pointed out technology shortcomings which can mean a blown circuit or a communication breakdown at any time. The police station layout in many cases is not logically based, so operations and equipment go where things fit.
So when they arrest somebody, they have to bring them on the other side of the building, but then they have to bring them through various different hallways and doors to get a photograph of them. Then they have to take them back through various different hallways and doors to get them secure again, which is separate from where they write the reports, which is separate from where they keep their equipment, which is separate from where we park all the police vehicles, which is over on the other side of the building.
You get the point.
The police department right now operates in 4 separate buildings because this isn't large enough for us. So what that does is it impacts the community directly.
If the public comes to the counter for recovered property, they typically have to wait for it to be retrieved off-site, and the police department's public meeting room cannot handle large community-wide gatherings.
A new building is being something that is truly a part of the community and will be better utilized and more accessible by the public as a whole.
The Santa Barbara voting public as a whole said enough is enough in 2017. Citizens approved Measure C, a 1-cent sales tax increase for infrastructure improvements like a new police station. Measure C generates over $20 million a year.
This is actually ideal.
He's pointing to the city parking lot at Coda and Santa Barbara streets.
You start with just a bare ground site, and you're able to design exactly the way you want to accommodate all the needs and create a really efficient system.
This is a preliminary computer rendering of a modern, efficient, and flexible police station at the Coda Street parking lot. The design is 72,000 square feet, consisting of 3 floors above ground and a basement level.
The new building is going to be much taller ceilings, have a structural grid that facilitates movement within the building as needs and the program change.
And the neighboring 250-space parking structure works in concert with the new police station. There will be a floor-to-floor relationship between the police station and the parking structure to create a more efficient day-to-day operation for both police personnel and the public.
Right now, the police force is bifurcated through the community, and this is going to bring them all together into one place.
Kernal is convinced that Santa Barbara residents will profit dramatically from a new police station.
The building is going to be an opportunity to enhance the connection between the public and the police department. There's going to be a meeting room that will serve multi-uses. There's going to be a lot more of a physical presence, I think, that will serve the community as a whole.
And now with Measure C and the public support that we are on the path and we are close to finding a location and it's moving on. So to be able to plan for something state-of-the-art and know it's coming is something really exciting and rewarding.
Vision Zero is a philosophy that all transportation-related deaths are unacceptable and preventable. There's no such thing as an accident. And it is a proven way to reduce traffic deaths by prioritizing safety above all other factors on our roads. The Vision Zero strategy aims to end severe or fatal transportation-related injuries by 2030. Along that vein, whenever possible, it's important to separate vehicular traffic, bicycles, and pedestrians. The Las Positas Modoc Road multi-use path project is currently in the final design phase. The Public Works Department received a $15 million state grant to complete a 2.6-mile-long separated multi-use pathway for bicyclists and pedestrians along Modoc Road. It runs from Calle de los Amigos to Las Positas Road and along Las Positas from Modoc to Cliff Drive. The project would provide key connections for the neighborhoods adjacent to the path, Ealings Park, Arroyo Burro Beach County Park, and the Douglas Family Preserve. Cabrillo Boulevard is a Vision Zero priority due to its collision history. Staff is currently improving safety by adding buffered bike lanes and reverse angle parking to open a view corridor. Other notable active pedestrian improvements include lower Milpas sidewalks connecting East Side residents to the ocean and replacing 2 more bridges at Anapamu and Gutierrez over Mission Creek. Even more impressive is the $27 million that Public Works has secured in federal grant funding for those projects, and to rebuild city bridges at Montecito Yanonali, De La Guerra, and Quinientos streets. When construction is complete by spring 2020, the city and the federal government will have partnered in the refurbishment or replacement of 12 city bridges that meet modern seismic standards. Other quality of life issues include an ambitious overall improvement plan at the Cabrillo Ballpark. The $1.5 million renovation project included a resod of the playing field, an attractive landscape design and irrigation plan, and installing fitness stations. The 13 pieces of equipment in total offer a mix of strength and cardiovascular exercises. Use of the park's outdoor fitness circuit is free and unsupervised. No reservations are required. We really recommend you try it. Nearby, a master plan was developed for Dwight Murphy Field through extensive community input and the Gwendolyn Strong Foundation. We are also exploring developing a synthetic turf field, a new swimming pool, skate park, and other park improvements for Ortega Park. At Bonnet Park, we have slated for many upgrades to better serve the neighborhood, and efforts are underway to convert the defunct West Beach wading pool to a year-round splash playground. It's gonna be fun. The jewel of East Beach, the Cabrillo Arts Pavilion, is finishing a $20 million remodel and will be reopened later this year. The two-story venue will now include the upscale Beachcomber restaurant and a Shake Shack, an American fast casual restaurant chain that has a location at Newport Beach. We are also proud of our Carousel House, which is a beautiful indoor-outdoor location for weddings and other gatherings. On the wetter side, the waterfront department at Stearns Wharf is busy ensuring the 800,000 visitors and 250,000 vehicles enjoy the pier safely. The 147-year-old structure is one of the city's most vulnerable and valuable assets. Dive crews inspected more than 500 heavy timber piles to identify those in need of replacement. Consequently, 35 piles will need replacement because they were damaged beyond repair during this winter storms. It's an engineering feat that much of the pile driving is done at night so that the wharf can remain open during business hours. Our Santa Barbara Library received the Hope Award from the Santa Barbara Education Foundation for providing education-related activities for students during the Thomas Fire and after the Montecito debris flow. Also, the library is completing the Poet Laureate programming with outgoing Poet Laureate Enid Osborne, and a final event and reception was held this month. We congratulate Laurent Bassalar as the new Poet Laureate. She will begin her 2-year term next week. The East Side Library launched 1 Million Cups. That's a weekly discussion group with coffee that brings together entrepreneurs and empowers them to start and grow their own businesses. Congratulations to the library for receiving 12 grants totaling $200,000 to support collections and other education programs. Investing in public safety is paramount for our community. We're now seeing a cascade of our police officers nearing retirement compared to prior years where only 7 officers on average would retire each year. The police department has instituted an innovative recruitment and retention program to adapt to changes in 21st century policing. New recruitment strategies include a new website and streamlining the process, and a police recruitment assistance team. Later this year, the police department will bring to council a proposal that requires off-sale alcohol retailers, such as gas stations, liquor stores, and neighborhood markets, to maintain their business activities in a lawful manner, one that does not foster crime and nuisance. This will establish responsible operating standards that retailers must follow in conducting their day-to-day business. The city also supports safe and legal access to medical and recreational cannabis. The city's approved cannabis businesses are sporadically coming online. Today, 2 medical cannabis dispensaries located on Upper De La Vina and Milpas are open and accepting new patient clients. 3 recreational retail operators are licensed and working to open their doors on Chapala, Mission, and Upper State Street. And by the end of the year, 2 cannabis manufacturers will come online in the city's manufacturing zone. In conclusion, I'm proud to support a culture of community engagement. As mayor, I've been holding monthly office hours. Last year, we did it at the Downtown Impact Hub with Nina Johnson to focus on the needs of our central core. This year, I'm moving about the community, making stops at our public libraries, and next week at the March 29th Montecito Farmers Market, 8:30 in the morning. In April, I'll be at the Pascucci's patio for First Thursday. Of course, you can always reach me at City Hall, make an appointment. Complaints go to Paul Casey, however. I'll take your complaints. And another important communication effort that I want to let you know about is to enhance bilingual access to local government. It's important for everyone to get the information from the city. The fire department recently hired Liliana Encinas, a new bilingual outreach coordinator, and she's going to help us meet all the needs of our Spanish speakers outside of the fire department as well. And she helped translate the disaster prep guide that's available in the lobby. And we want to thank the Santa Barbara Independent and the Santa Barbara Foundation for helping with that. Thank you so much for this opportunity to tell you how the city of Santa Barbara is working to improve your quality of life. Thank you for coming. It's the end of our program. Thank you.